Greetings everyone, Ronnie Landis here, coming to you live from the Garden Island of Hawaii. And I just wanted to share a message that's on my heart. It's very near and dear to me, and it's one that I saw growing up, and one that I often was closely to being labeled as ADD, attention deficit disorder, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or having to take some kind of refocusing drug like Ritalin, or to take an antidepressant like a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor or an SSRI, or any other number of pharmaceutical modalities to get me to focus, or to get other people in my classroom growing up to focus and to sit still in a desk and listen to a monotone teacher that may or may not be inspiring me to actually hear what they have to say and to focus and you know, all those things. So what I want to just kind of drive in this message is a number of factors, but the first one is to understand that we have to get out of the isms. We have to get out of the labels and the rules that are running our life. And a lot of the rules that are running our life, especially when we're in our formative years of adolescence, say we're a teenager, say we're 19, 20, 21, and we're trying to find our way in the world. We're trying to figure out where to put our feet, where our identity lies. And we have our parents telling us one thing, we have our teachers telling us another, we have our doctors in white trench coats telling us another thing. And you know, we're just confused. We don't really know where to go with all this. Do we take the drug, or do we go the natural way? Which one do we do? If you've been following my work, then you probably know where my proclivity lies. I always go towards natural methods first and foremost. Food first always, for every single circumstance, health related and otherwise. When it comes to a subject like this, by the way, I want to point out that when we talk about chemical imbalances, we're also talking about a type of deficiency in the body of alkalinity, a type of deficiency of our biorhythms and circadian rhythms, meaning our biological clock. Not getting enough sleep, not having our biological rhythms in check, and how that creates a disharmony in the body and starts to cause us to codependently rely on certain substances that cause us to, you know, basically be in a chemical addiction. So for example, say for example, someone gets off pharmaceuticals, but then they swing over to doing something like cannabis, smoking marijuana, for example, and that keeps them balanced to some extent. It keeps their mood elevated to some extent. What people don't realize is that cannabis, or even tobacco, the excessive abuse of these things can cause a false alkaline stimulation in the blood, because essentially what's going on in the blood chemistry is somebody is overly acidic, they're burdened by acidosis, and that they get a flush of alkalinity. It's like an alkaline stimulation, or they get like a mineral, for example, that helps to balance out their blood chemistry for a short amount of time. But then, because they haven't changed the diet, they haven't changed their lifestyle, they haven't changed what's going on up here, so they're overrun with acidosis, acid-bearing compounds that's burdening their blood chemistry, so they go to these substances to get that quick hit of alkalinity. But until they change their nutrition strategy, they're never really going to up-level their mood, their focus, their cognitive factors, their emotional stability, because basically their blood sugar is erratic, right? So one of the things that I'd like to just mention in reference to this, the overview of this message, because what a message this is that you have to go to food first. You have to get on green vegetable juicing. You have to flush out the acid waste products in the blood in the elimination system. You have to do detoxification measures to stimulate things like glutathione and superoxide dismutase that help to pull out things like heavy metals and hormone disrupting chemicals like xenoestrogens and things of this nature that throw our biorhythms and our biochemistry out of balance, that cause us to go to prescription medication, that cause us to go to these false stimulants just to feel normal, right? That's a huge aspect. So when you start to change out your diet and you start to move towards living food nutrition and superfood nutrition, things change. Your outlook on life starts to change, and you're no longer locked in the isms of life, and you're no longer bearing the weight of the labels that society has set up for you, where you're basically labeled as ADD. You can't focus. What is that? You know, that's just a label. You know, to create a straitjacket, so you keep going back for their product over and over and over. You want to break out of captivity of society and get into your divinity, get into your sovereignty, and liberate yourself into a new state of freedom. Changing your diet is essential for doing that. The last piece that I want to just drive in about this is the interpersonal work that has to be done. Whenever somebody has, let's just call it, you know, a chemical imbalance of some sort, a biorhythm imbalance, or they're taking antidepressants. You know, for example, I grew up with a lot of anxiety. I've had bouts with anxiety. I've seen a lot of people that have been in deep depression-like states, or sorrow and pain, and living in those states, not just going through it in a healthy way, but actually living in it. And we don't want to do that, right? So one of the things that we have to understand is that we're carrying a lot of trauma. We're carrying the trauma and the weight of the trauma from our past. For example, if you remember a time when you were a kid and you went to go ask your mom or dad for something and they snapped at you, right? Because maybe they were agitated, they were stressed out, and they didn't know how to deal with it, so they snapped on you. And you developed a crystallization of a trauma that crystallized in your body the moment that event happened, and you created a meaning to go with the event, and that meaning has followed you throughout your life. Your emotions are non-localized, meaning that they don't live in time and space reality. So you could have had an emotion from when you're 5 years old, and you could re-experience that emotion every day of your life, but your mind thinks that it's happening in the present moment, but the reality is that that happened way back when. So you have to do certain things like, you know, hypnotherapy is great, and past life regression, and just doing the interpersonal work, meditation, breath work, yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, all those things in combination with the green vegetable juice, with the green powdered superfoods, with upgrading your nutritional strategy. And over time, as you do that, you will upgrade your operating system, you will perform better, your emotional stability will be on point, your blood sugar will be on point, your thinking will be pristine with clarity, and you won't have to run to any substances to keep you balanced, because you are now a balanced and harmonious human being.